always dance to that when I hear the song.
It's a catchy beat. All right. Wednesday afternoon. Everybody stay calm. How you doing, Johnny?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Just double checking on the phone, making sure everything's running fine. It looks good. Streaming. Everything's ready to go.
So we're going to get to our show in a minute, but I want to talk to you all about a couple of announcements and ask Johnny about his daughter, Peyton, who had an unfortunate encounter with an automobile. But just want to let everyone know, in the Facebook group, I've been adding daily replays from some amazing speakers from days gone by. Always stuff that's of high quality and relevance, timeless, fundamental. So I just yesterday added an off-camera flash replay with James Hodgins. This morning I added one from 9 years ago with Brian DeMint. I've had him on many webinars over the years, and as well as I've had him speak at 2 live events, namely the Inferno down in Toronto and another one down in Nashville. Brian DeMint is an amazing photographer. He's a little quirky, a little dry. He's funny as hell. And he speaks his mind, but he's really skilled when it comes to creativity and the creation of images with visual impact. So I added that, and it's well worth a watch for anybody at any level. It's really good, and it kind of goes through the basics of composition and all these other. He gets kind of formulaic at times, but it all makes perfect sense. So Brian is coming on board with us. John, I contacted him yesterday, and he's like all in. He just couldn't go yesterday or today or whatever. He's got to wait a few weeks. Maria Sampaio is coming soon, as you know.
Yep.
Tried to get Paula Moon, but Paula and Warren are up in North Battleford, and we've had Warren on many times, but it was finally Paula's turn to come on board. But they're getting back into their dance school.
I saw
photography. Yeah, so we got to wait a couple of weeks to get them on, as well as Danny Rabilev. So those are names that are like, they're on deck.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I wanted to mention those things, so you can look out for those. So before we get into talking about studio management with the studio boss, my wife, the love of my life.
Hello.
There she is, live and in person. So Johnny, tell us quickly, what happened with your daughter Peyton, and how is she doing?
Well, it's the one call you don't like to hear when you're at work, that's for sure. But my wife and I were sitting here at the studio last Wednesday in the afternoon, getting closer to the end of the day, around 3:15, 3:30. And, of course, we get a phone call from one of my daughter's friends mentioning that they were crossing the road by one of the Shoppers Drug Marts at our house there. And I guess they either weren't paying attention or some mishap happened, and she accidentally stepped in front of a moving car and got hit by a car.
Wow.
So, and the call was, we were crossing the street, and Peyton got hit by a car, and she's not moving, but the ambulance is here. You might want to come.
Oh my God.
And then they hung up.
Oh my
Luckily,
God.
we're only 10 minutes away. So my wife and I, of course, get in the car, and we whip down there, and she was in the ambulance by this time. And basically, she accidentally stepped in front of it had to do with a car that was turning, and another one was coming from behind them going straight. And I guess they misjudged things. It was not the driver's fault. Everybody's saying, are the police pressing charges? But it wasn't the driver's fault. It was our daughter's and her friend's fault. And it was an accident. And luckily, I'm thinking it's her gymnastics training that helped her on this, because luckily she didn't hit her head. There was no internal injuries. It turned out that she ended up breaking her left wrist and a bone in her right shoulder here. Basically the arm bone that goes down your bicep and everything, that bone right at the top by the shoulder, it broke that bone and pushed it up. So she basically hit the driver's side corner, and you could see a dent on the front of the car, but the size of her head almost. So you almost think that her head hit it, but it was from her hip or something. And she rolled up, apparently, the actual car. And I guess when he slammed on his brakes, it flung her. And she ended up, they said that she flew about 7 meters before she hit the ground. So about 22 feet, basically, until she hit the ground. But she didn't hit her head. Lots of scrapes on her knees. Like I said, we were at the hospital here in Pembroke from about 3:30, 4 o'clock until about 10:30 when they were finally able to get her an ambulance to take her down to CHEO in Ottawa, which is like sick kids in Toronto type of thing, because that's where they do all the bandaging up. They won't do it here. And they got her down there, and we've got home from Ottawa, which is about an hour and a half drive from here. We got home about 5:30 in the morning, so
Nice.
Wow.
it was a long night.
Nice. Crazy. You
But-
don't want to. You don't want to hear that when they call. She's not moving.
No,
What?
but I think somebody was looking out for her up there. That because, like I said, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. She could have been paraplegic. She could have
Yeah.
been in a wheelchair. She could have been hit her head and been. She could have died. So she's
Yeah.
still with us, and she's laughing and joking, and
Oh, good.
yeah. So she's
Well,
doing
that's
well.
good. That's good. Glad to hear. Tell her
Thank you.
we wish her well, and
For sure.
you and your wife too. So,
Yeah.
anyways, so we have somebody very special with us, and just by coincidence, Tina found this yesterday in her office. Check that out.
Yeah. Studio boss.
Business Organization and Success Systems, a complete instructional manual for running your portrait studio so it doesn't run you ragged. This was a book that Tina wrote with someone else, a lady by the name of Dana. Dana's good friends of ours. And they put a lot of work into it, and then it kind of got shelved, and there it is. She claims it's a little outdated, but that
Easily
is-
updated.
yeah, easily updated. I'm guessing 99% of the information is relevant. It just needs a quick update. But I mentioned that because it's kind of an interesting thing. We kind of forgot about it, and there it was in the spring cleanup aspect of things.
Yep.
Tina happened to find it just yesterday, but it also lends a bit of credibility to Tina's life, especially Tina's life in the last 26 years, as part of running a professional photography studio, and which was something that her and I took on when we got married in 1995. And I remember asking you, Tina, I think we were in the car. I think we were driving in your car because you had a nicer car back then. I had a shitty old car. I had a motorcycle and a canoe when we first got married. But she had a brand new car because she was gainfully employed. Yeah, I was living a single life. I had a house. I was doing all right. And,
The bigger hair.
Oh, lots of hair.
Much
Lot.
bigger.
And but I remember driving around, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go back, keep working as an accountant?" Or because she was a senior accountant by then, and she had been a senior accountant for most of her adult life, as a certified accountant, and various positions throughout. You were actually teaching accounting at local college and what have you, and you instantly said, "No, I want to run a studio." And it was like, it wasn't something we planned, and it wasn't like I stalked you in the if there would have been at the time Tinder or something like that, or an online dating site. If I'd have looked, oh, she'd be perfect as a business partner. It was just kind of like it just kind of happened. It was just because I was like footloose and fancy free, doing my own thing. Although I did take business very, very serious, and I had a bricks and mortar place, and business was doing all right. And she said, "Yeah, we got together almost right away and running the studio, and things just boom, they just blossomed." So, anyways, so Tina,
Yes,
how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
How you doing with the lockdown? I'm putting that question out to you. You and John. Let's just talk about lockdowns before we get into other stuff.
Well, Ontario, I think right now is one of the worst for lockdowns, right? We
It's our
got,
turn.
for anybody who's not living in Ontario, on December 26th, we were told stay-at-home orders, and we fall into the same category as personal services, hairdressers and spas. So,
I can see why.
yeah, of course.
Science.
So I think we were allowed to go back to work for 2 weeks in March, which
like
is
that.
hardly enough to get anything even booked. And then we were shut down again, and then supposed to be able to go back to work April 12th, and it was May 8th, and now it's May 21st. So it's really frustrating because we've tried booking stuff, and as soon as we book something, things change again, and we have to cancel or reschedule. And weddings, of course, are just keep either getting canceled or postponed, and it's really frustrating. But
That's why I'm glad I don't do
hopefully-
weddings anymore.
hopefully this May 21st is going to be it, and we'll be back to work, and we can
Oh, it'd be
start
nice.
doing some promotions and trying to get
Yeah.
things rolling again.
Oh yeah, I
So
know.
How
I'm
about
the
you,
same
John?
way. No, I'm the same way. Like when it first happened, I thought, okay, here we go again. But it was only supposed to be for that 4 weeks, and I was still open for curbside pickup. So at least people who ordered stuff from me in the past, they could still come and pick their stuff up. But that was about it. And then I think I was actually tested by the government too to see if I was actually open, because I get people calling me at least 3 times a day thinking that maybe passport photos is an essential service and that I'm still doing that right now, which I'm not. I can't have any clients actually here in the studio.
Yeah.
So I actually had one of the workers from Cheryl Gallant's office, which is our local MP representative here, which is conservative government. Federal, of course, but conservative. And she called me up saying, yeah, just wondering if you're doing passport photos. And I'm like, unfortunately, not at the moment. We're closed until the end of the shutdown, and then we can do them then. And she's like, okay, thank you. And she hung up. So I don't know if she was just not very bright and calling me to see if she could get a passport done, or if she was actually testing me to see if I was actually open.
Yeah.
Could have been.
But yeah, I get calls every day. Can I do passport or firearm photos or permanent residency card photos? And then, of course, he comes on last week and says, well, we're extending it for another 2 weeks, which then takes it from the 8th to, like you said, like the 20th or something like that. So it is what it is. And especially when you're like myself and you guys, where we run a brick and mortar store, it gets to be a little repetitive.
This is our business. We're not running a part-time business, right?
Exactly, out of our houses and that. We actually have to pay rent, pay our insurance, and we actually lucked out. I got government granting from the Ontario government, which allowed us to, because we were at the point where we're ready to buy a new computer this year. We had to buy, I'm looking at buying new lights and even a new camera eventually. So luckily I got government funding to help cover all that I wasn't going to be able to do by not being open. So I got my wife a new computer last week. Cost me, what, $3,500, but we had to do it. We had to get the RAM and get all the stuff in there, and just bought a new monitor for it yesterday.
Nice.
So, nice.
So, yeah, it's what we're dealing with, and one day at a time. So, Tina, let's talk about... I got a question came in from Hark. It's a really good question. But before we get into that, let's talk about your thoughts on... Okay, I was talking to my uncle last night. He's in Vancouver. I talk to him on a regular basis.
It sounds like a joke. I was talking to my uncle last night. Sorry.
No, we always talk. We have these. We just connect and we just chit chat, see how things are going. And I was telling him how the wedding industry last year, everything got, obviously, COVID, and we had a bunch of pop-up wedding day events scheduled, and that is an exciting area that we got into a couple of years ago, with Tina now being a wedding officiant, and we created pinkdoorweddings.com, which is a new sort of, I call it, this is wedding photography, not modernized, it's sort of like evolved. It's just like fairies and medieval pictures and ice fairies are child portraits evolved. I mean, the child portraits we were doing 10, 20 years ago are not as popular as they would be if I were doing the same thing back then, but we've kind of evolved. So that's the same thing that happened with the weddings. So the wedding industry evolved into pop-up weddings, which were very, very popular. So Nancy Tilburg says, book 2 today. Just as sort of a side mention here, Nancy called me a couple of years ago when we first started promoting our Pink Door weddings, and she was like all excited. And we chatted for about 2 hours on the phone, and she also got into doing pop-up weddings in her studio out in Thunder Bay. She's got an awesome location. She's out in the country. She's got the barn, the trees, and it's like amazing. So, but anyways, everything for us, Tina, and I'm going to get to asking you a question momentarily here, is obviously everything just got either taken off the table or postponed. So a lot of our we still do full weddings too, but we've been doing more and more pop-up weddings, which I'm excited about. I much prefer doing the pop-up weddings because it's lean and mean, it's in and out, and you're more like a wedding planner, which I kind of like.
What do they usually last? Like about 2-3 hours, or
maximum 2? So, actually, I'm going to let Tina answer that question too, as part of the big question that I'm asking. I'm trying to put out there. insofar as looking at just that one aspect of our photography business, which is the wedding industry, aka pop-up weddings. So we still do big weddings. We had a bunch of them last year. A lot of them said, okay, we're not going to be able to get married. We got our wedding license. Let's take advantage of it. We're going to have a backyard wedding, pop-up style, and we're going to have the big event next year. Some people just totally rescheduled completely in hopes of having the big wedding this year. It looks like the big wedding this year ain't going to happen for anybody. And it looks like possibly that and I know a lot of this is irrelevant to you, John, because you have no interest in doing weddings, but I think the ideas are still, they're still relevant, because we're talking about being adaptable and hopefully being able to predict where things are going as far as trends are concerned. But Tina, my question is this, that I want to bring out there is the trend, specifically the trends in weddings. I'm thinking that because of what's going on, people are going to be either forced in or going to convince themselves into, you know what, I don't even know if I'm ever going to be able to have the big wedding ever. So they're not even going to do this, reschedule to next year in hopes of having a big wedding. They're just there's going to be a bigger and an increasing market for pop-up weddings across the board. Oh, I like the way Nancy says it. Marriage or mortgage? Netflix show. There we go. Let's pitch it. We'll have a cast of characters on there. We got to somehow fit John on there. I don't know. Maybe we can.
I'll be behind the scenes. I'll be the filmer.
All right. There you go. Marriage or mortgage. Yeah. So anyway, any thoughts on that, Tina? And John, if you have any feedback too, you're more than welcome. But we're mostly wanting to hear from Tina as far as somebody who's worked.
I think this is largely going to depend on what happens regarding the May 21st opening up, because we have right now even pop-ups that are rescheduling, and postponing because they want more than 5 people at their wedding, which is I think they're allowed 10 right now, actually, but no reception, just the ceremony. Like, they can't even have people, not supposed to have people, even stay at their home and have food afterwards, right? We're in a situation where we're being told you can only associate with the people in your own household, which is, you can get away with a lot more at home as long as you don't have a nosy neighbor that's going to call bylaw on you. But, we have a June 5th pop-up scheduled, and she's emailing me and she's like, is this even going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know if we're even going to be able to do this because of the situation ongoing. So fortunately, she's willing to just sit tight and wait until we know whether things are going to open up again on May 21st. And because we have the little chapel booked for her, and it's just 25 people, which is within the 30% capacity of the chapel, which we should be able to do as long as we come out of lockdown. So, but we don't have the answers, and I think people are still holding off right now until they see what's going to happen.
I feel things will open up to a degree, and yes, there's going to be an increase. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic, and there'll be more and more brides that are going to be eligible for pop-up weddings, largely because they've changed their mind and they've given up on the small wedding. And plus, the whole trend has been leading towards pop-up weddings, anyways. Just like Nancy said, marriage or mortgage. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Pick one or the other, and it seems that a lot of millennials are very sensible.
Right now, it's cheaper to go the marriage route because mortgages are atrocious right now.
So, but there might be I'm feeling hopeful. There's going to be an influx, and we are going to be in a good position to, fulfill that through the services that we offer, which is a pop-up wedding. It's a complete package for anybody who's watching and not really understanding what I'm talking about, because I get that question all the time. Yeah. What is a pop-up wedding? Tina, I'm going to let you answer that question. Somebody comes up to you and they hear you say pop-up wedding, and it's like, what's a pop-up wedding?
So there's 2 different ways we do pop-up weddings. So we have pop-up wedding days where we'll do multiple weddings in one day. So 10, 1, 4, and 7. So with those ones, people just pre-book their spot and they just show up venue. We have the venue, we have it decorated. We have the wedding arch and the seating and the decor set up. So they show up at their time with their guests, they get married, few snacks, they leave. The other way we do pop-up weddings is on one-offs. Somebody wants to get married in their backyard. We may just, or at a restaurant, we may just show up and do a 2-hour package where I marry them, Rob does some pictures of the ceremony, some formals, and we leave. Others, we've arranged more for them. For example, backyard wedding we did last year, we arranged the tent rental and chairs and helped them find a caterer, and then did the officiating and photography. And we just leave once we're done the officiating and the photography, and they just carry on and have their little backyard party. So so it's just little. It's usually around 25 people, and
yeah. And people love it. I mean, everyone, I've explained it to, and I'm sure you've noticed this as well, is they've all gone, oh, that's so nice. They just seem to really love the idea. So,
well, correct me if I'm wrong too. Like, a lot of people now in the last year have had to cancel their wedding times because, say, they were booked to get married 2020, 2021, they can't. No. So do you think a lot of them that were going to do a big wedding would now rather do a smaller one? Because you can do, what, 2, 3, 4 in a day. So you can get a lot of those people that were canceled. They're not going to be finding their photographers. People are already booked for 2022 ahead of them. They might come to you now too.
Well, we had
a big wedding that they normally had.
We had a wedding for last year that was supposed to have a big wedding, and by the time they decided to reschedule, there were no venues left for them in 2021, so they had to reschedule to 2022.
Yeah.
Now it looks all these 2021 weddings may have to still bump off for another year if they want to insist.
Yeah.
Or just have a little wedding, do party later when numbers will allow, right?
Definitely.
As long as we can open up. So Nancy says pop-up brides seem to have a lot more, they seem to be a lot more easygoing than big wedding brides. That's interesting. That's probably true for whatever reason. The reason go for it.
I think their expectations are different. They just don't, they've realized it's not worth the hassle, not worth the trouble, and not worth the money. So I think they're willing to be a lot more flexible, especially now with COVID in this situation. You're just like, I just want to get married. I just want to get married. And, so.
Definitely.
What about normal times? Do you think, like when we first started doing these, this was pre-COVID, they did seem to be easier going. They were just like, yeah, we're doing this. We've been together 8 years. We got 2 kids. We just didn't want the hassle of having to organize a big wedding. Yeah. And for that reason, and also their personality and the way they're made, they're sort of like, they've been putting it off, but they don't really care. So that kind of, in a sense, makes them easygoing. It seems to attract that demographic. Is that true in your observation, Tina?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, some of them are just young couples that just don't want to spend the money, but still want to do something nice and have their family there. But others, yes, that we see are like one of our weddings from last year. She said we had a whole thing booked in Niagara Falls with dinner, and then they added it all up, and they're like, you know what? Between us, we've got 4 kids, and we could do a family trip to Disney with everybody for what we were going to spend. Never mind. Exactly. So let's just have a little backyard pop-up.
And do you also find, too, that you get a lot of couples that it's their second or third marriage, and so they've already done the big wedding, so they don't need to do that anymore. They just want to get married.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they just want something nice, simple, and, with these pop-ups, if it's not, Nancy's saying a lot of them are drowning in student debt as well. Yes. That's true.
Exactly.
And they want to buy homes, and they want to do other stuff, not spend all this money and time doing a big wedding. So, So hopefully, once things open up, really hoping that will take off for the rest of this year to help things rolling.
Yeah. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that one.
And I'm sure you got lots of contacts for when Danielle's ready to do the step there. I mean, if you're going to be in the wedding party, you guys can't shoot it and officiate it.
Well, she's always been told she's getting married on the beach, so.
Since she was a kid, we told her that. So here's a weird question before we get into more general studio management questions. Tina, if you had because most people that know us know that our two main sources of income are pop-up weddings, and ferries. I mean, we do a lot of families, especially last year was quite busy with families and, executive portraits and the odd commercial gig once in a while. But the bulk of our income, 80%, the bulk of it is pop-up weddings and ferries. Probably more so ferries, especially last year. They were very, very popular. So if you had to choose one or the other, which would you choose and why?
Oh,
tough question, eh?
that is a tough question. That is. I mean, ferries is harder, definitely. I mean, it's especially not so much if we're doing it here in Sudbury at our studio, but when we're traveling doing it, it's pretty exhausting. Packing everything up, making sure you're not forgetting anything, and just the stress of that, driving, setting up a location that's not yours, doing the viewings and orderings, and then drive back home, do the workflow, get the orders out, make sure they're bang on, but it's lucrative. And one of the things I do find about ferries, as opposed to other types of portraiture that we do, is we get very little pushback on price and the fact that we don't sell digitals. Whereas with other types, families and kids and stuff, in this climate, we get a lot of pushback about not selling digitals. But
it's ongoing, isn't it?
But with the ferries, for some reason, I might get one each group.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting observation about that.
Do you suppose that's the case because first of all, they're excited about those sessions, so there's an excitement level that really kind of gives them that, and also the fact that they appreciate the fact that there's a lot of work that goes into them. That's an easy sell in that respect. Yeah.
And it's something that's unique, right? And that they can't just go to a shoot and burn photographer and get done, maybe. So in that case, I think they're appreciating the fact that that's professional photography, which is somewhat diluted in because everybody's got a good camera right now.
Yeah.
We'll pick one then if you...
Okay, so I just got to talk it out in my head to figure it out.
I'm so mean asking that question.
I say if you can only do one, you do the ferries, because then you can still come here.
Problem with that, John, is we got to put up with you.
I know. That's me being selfish.
No, it's all good.
If we could book like a lot of pop-ups, they're nice to do because for most of them, we're in and out. And it's just quick and easy, and they're like Nancy said, they're not a lot of hassle, and they're generally very appreciative of the fact that there's this little package. I mean, we used to only sell I would choose pop-ups. That's what Nancy's saying. John's saying ferries isn't seasonal though, right?
Not really.
I'm not sure what you're asking there, John. Are you saying it is or is not?
No, he thinks it's not, so maybe it'd be feasible to do pop-up ones. You could do those all year round, whereas ferries maybe are not. They're just seasonal maybe.
No, ferries are all year round, really.
Are they?
Yeah. We can do those really any time of year. I mean, sales are usually better in the fall, because people are starting to make Christmas and gifts and stuff like that. But last July, we did a ferry day here because we usually do one spring and fall. And usually, there's a big difference between the sales in the spring and sales in the fall. But the July one was much better than we expected. And I suspect that was because people are coming out of lockdown and they just want to do something and do something nice and just, and everybody's sitting at home, not spending any money. So they've got some extra cash to spend. And so yeah.
John, I want to just, if you want to comment on John's comment there, Tina, but my comment is that, yeah, he's right, but not necessarily, because pop-ups are new. We don't know yet how seasonal they are. We've been throwing ideas around since we started doing these, and we had like, oh, let's do a pop-up day at Christmas time, all Christmas theme. Maybe do one New Year's. Maybe we can do one on Valentine's and do a winter one if we had a location that was very suitable, that had a nice area outdoors to take some winter scenes as part of their photography, you know, with some nice evergreens. Yep. Yada yada. We don't know, so it's kind of unknown yet because it's evolving. And I'm comparing pop-ups to traditional wedding photography, which traditional wedding photography is very, very, very seasonal. Yeah. You know, it's like 90% are from like May to September-ish, and then a smattering throughout the rest of the year. Yeah. So, Tina, pick one. Come on, you can do it. Devil's out. Do you want me to answer it, and then you can answer after you've heard my answer?
Well, I could give an answer, but it would be strictly based on our total sales numbers, and Fairies is bigger right now for us. That doesn't mean it will always be, but
for that reason, and for the reason that I love being around kids, I'm going to go with Fairies. But I really like the pop-up weddings too. So it's a really, really tough call. Really tough call to make. Yeah. So
I can see that.
Yeah, it's exciting when you're marrying people and you're part of their wedding day. That close, you're that closely involved. You're no longer just the photographer. You're the photographer, wedding officiant, the planner. You're doing everything because you're bringing, for the most part, especially when we do the pop-up wedding events, we're bringing a location to them. And every time we sit and talk to them, they're always, always excited. So
I know it'd be hard for you, too, to decide on that, too, because as much as you love the kids, you love the Fairies, I know how much you love doing weddings, too. So you've been doing it a long time and you enjoy it. So,
and rarely do we hit up a... what do you call those brides again?
Bridezilla? I've never had a Bridezilla. I've had a Mumzilla before, but never a Bridezilla.
Really? Well, lucky you.
Usually just tone them down right at the beginning, and then they're usually fine for the rest of the day.
We get them once in a while. And,
knock on wood.
They're no fun. But anyways, you mean knock on concrete, John. Come on. All right, so... you know, I have questions going into my brain about managing from your aspect, because I know, Tina, you do a lot of that, and you seem to be very adept at it, and you're like, I could probably do it, but I would struggle a lot more, and I'd have to sit down and really focus on, you know, organizing. You know, you talk about when we go on a location shoot for doing Fairies on location. It is a lot of work. There's a lot of checklists. And that includes the booking, the communicating with the clients, make sure they show up, and we got to preemptively solve as many potential hassles as is possible. And when you know, John, you were there. We were in your studio. It went pretty smooth.
It did go pretty smooth, really smooth.
And you probably are aware of this, maybe not. Maybe you're half aware of it. But 99.999% of the reason why it went smooth is because of the immense amount of work that Tina puts into it as a studio manager. And it doesn't, you know, it's not lost on me, the amount of work she puts into it. I stay away from that unless she needs me. She's really good at that. She's exceptionally good at that. And I often said Tina has her black belt in studio management. She's so good at it. She's got ninja level skills. Yeah. So maybe we can touch on some of those aspects, Tina, and you can give advice to somebody, say if they were just starting out, or if somebody's been in the business for a long time and they've been working alone, and they want to get into new aspects and evolving their photography business from a studio manager angle.
So you're talking about just like starting from booking the session?
Yeah. What
Or
are
Yeah,
some,
maybe walk it through it that way. Yeah.
yeah, real quickly, just an overview. What are the key qualities and or procedures that you think are most important? And so if you went to your daughter Danielle and she wanted she wanted to book, this is hypothetical, she wanted to book a fairy day or do a pop-up wedding, and you were like, oh my god, Danielle, she's like her dad, just an airhead, she's just in the moon. We know that, we joke about it all the time. So, and I'm like, oh, she's gonna miss so many steps, and you got to be very careful that none of these steps, John, let me put it in perspective for you, John. You got a big gig to do. You're
Yep.
going to go in the studio the day before, and you're going to get all your equipment ready.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to do that an hour before.
No.
You're going to
Although
be ready.
I've sometimes procrastinated, but usually I have most stuff done the night before, or
Well,
I
if
go
it's a-
in
if it's a-
hours early.
If it's a big gig,
Yeah.
this is important. You got a
Yep.
3-day shoot. It's like you cannot
yeah.
take a chance that anything's going to screw up on you.
Yep.
All those details. So looking at that as an analogy, a metaphor, but for studio management. So Tina, I don't know, does that make any sense for you? Is there any way you can answer that?
I'm not really sure what you're asking, but let's use fairy appointments as an example, because I got to be much more on top of those because we're doing so many at a time and often out of town. So I really have to communicate with them well. Most of the inquiries come in by email. I do get some by phone, but most of them are email, which is actually good because when you're communicating in writing, the people have to refer back to as well. So, so let's say someone emails and says, can you hold a spot for me fairy day for my daughter? And so I email back, and I have a standard thing that I send to them. It's like, well, yes, I can book you an appointment, and I need your daughter's name and age, and I need your phone number, and I need to get the session fee paid in order to reserve your spot. And I also need to book an appointment for you to come back to view the images and place your order. And so that goes back to them first of all. And there's the odd one I'll never hear back from because they don't want to commit. So they don't want to pay the session fee, right?
Yeah, and commitment is important, obviously.
Yeah, and most people are really good, and they'll say, "Oh, so send the e-transfer right away," or I can do. We use Square to do our credit card transactions, so if they want to pay by credit card, I can just email them a link to pay, and I tell them once I receive their payment that I'll send them back all the information that they need, but because their appointment isn't confirmed until I receive their payment, I don't send them any further information until then. So once I receive their payment, then I send them back another standard email going through the time of their appointment for the session, the time of their appointment for their view and order, and explaining that we don't sell digital files, and here's a copy of the price list, and please look at it before your session, even though some of them still don't, because I don't want any pushback on the price. And it's like, oh, I didn't know. And we give them all the information on what's going to happen when they arrive, as far as choosing the dresses and the costumes. And with COVID, we're now including information on, please sanitize your hands when you come in the studio, and going to show some dresses for your daughter. Please only touch the one your daughter's going to wear because we have to steam them between uses, and on and on. And I'm not sure if I've missed anything there. So I send that off to them, and then I send them another email about a week before.
Yeah.
Just a reminder with all the same information again, but just a reminder your appointment is on.
Yeah.
Such and such, and your viewing appointment. And at that point, sometimes people may have to move a viewing appointment or something like that because we're closer to the date, which is all good.
Yeah.
And then when they come in for the session, once they're done the session, then I actually physically hand them the price list, and another sheet of paper with a reminder of the day and time of their ordering appointment.
Yeah.
So.
And we have a display of all our products, like at John's studio. Remember in your front area, John?
Yep,
As soon as they
I
come
do.
in, they saw the albums. We had canvas prints. What else did we have there?
There's the art prints and
Yep.
yeah,
The albums, the
Box of
matted prints. Yeah, the box
the
of
matted prints box. Yeah.
So your
And
man,
I took a lot from that. I learned a lot from you guys when you were here doing that, because I took a lot of your sales practice. Although I did my viewings almost the same as you, and it was funny because when I watch you guys, it's like, I do mine the exact same way, which was really good because I do impersonal sales. But I still took a lot of stuff from you guys and incorporated it into my business. And when I did my Christmas special, it was almost like doing your fairy portraits, but with Christmas pictures instead. Oops.
yeah.
Awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so
I still think, I mean, especially when we go to town, sometimes there's a few stragglers that I have to do their view and order by Zoom, which isn't awful because they can see my screen, right? But I like them being there in person so they can touch the stuff and, it's like, oh, I want to look, can I look at those matted prints again? Or can I look at the album? I think it's easier for them to choose those things when they can see them and touch them. And
yeah.
Interesting. A couple questions coming in from Nancy, or a comment and a question. I want to address those right now. I'm not sure if this applies to pop-up weddings or not. She says, I have the happy clause. Maybe you can show that on the screen. I have the happy clause in my contract that says we will always proceed with mutual understanding, yada, yada, yada. I think I understand yada, yada, yada more than the rest of it, so I'm not 100% clear what you mean. What is a happy clause that says we will proceed with mutual understanding? Got me there. Plus, well, while she's thinking on that one, Nancy also asked, do you have anyone change their mind
or asked to cancel the appointment when they see the prices? I would say it's happened like a couple times, not very many times. Not with the fairies anyways. Maybe with regular portraiture when they get clear that we don't sell digitals. And some people, which I think our regular portraiture prices are not that bad, but some people now are just used to, $200, 10 finished files in your session fee and print your own.
Right.
Yeah, but not so much with the fairies. I guess, again, because it's unique. Right?
One thing we did with our Christmas ones, I don't know if you guys did with the fairies, but my wife and I decided we would offer web resolution files to anything that they ordered. So whatever they ordered, we touch them up, and then it's like 72 DPI at like 900 on the longest end or something. So it looks great on a screen, but they can't print them.
Yeah. We do that, and that's actually, is in that email I sent to them once they book. And it says we do not sell digital files, but we will, however, give you a social media file of any image you purchase as a
I did charge for one digital file. This was different than what you guys do, only because of the situation. Yours was fairy portraits. You do them all year round. Because mine was a Christmas special, I offered them, if they wanted, I give it a discount of my normal file rate that I would give them one file of their choosing that they can take to make Christmas cards with, only because we did our Christmas special a little later this year, and we didn't have time to make Christmas cards for them, get them back, and be able to give them to them so they can mail them out to people. So we offered that we'll sell it to you, but this is the rate. It was like $40 for a file, I think, which was really cheap. But it was just for that one file, just so they can use it for Christmas cards and stuff.
So it wasn't size large?
No, it was just like, we just give them the normal. I don't scale them down to like 8x10. I just give them, we touch them up, and then what we send to the lab to print, that's what I gave them. But it was only that one file, and only some took advantage of it, because then they still have to take it, order their Christmas cards and things like that. But it was after they'd already ordered all their other stuff.
Okay.
So
Nancy made a reply. Can you show that, John? This is interesting.
Let's see.
Very interesting.
It's a clause in your pop-up thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is in reference to Nancy's comment earlier where she said she has a quote-unquote happy clause in her contract that says they will proceed with mutual understanding. It's a clause, and they are agreeing to the spirit of agreeable and pleasant. You see, that's kind of interesting. And it's a subtle reminder in writing that bridezillas are not allowed. We call it the happy clause. That's a very interesting...
yeah, that's interesting. I've never seen anything like that. That's interesting.
I gotta say, I do not feel compelled to using something like that because we rarely, if ever, if ever do we ever have bridezillas and or hassles, but I can see the utility in that. What do you think, Tina?
That's interesting. I'm going to give that some thought.
I'd find it's hard to enforce that because sometimes it's just a spur of the moment something that happens.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, nevertheless, and Tina's obviously smitten by it. So I can see her swiping that, Nancy. Not sure if you came up with it or if you came up with it out of a series of frustrating events or just because you have a different take on it. And from your experience, I know you've led in your previous life, you were a police officer, and sometimes you see things differently based on your experiences. And Tina, being a studio manager, she has a different take on it based on her experiences. Interesting. I personally don't see ourselves using it, but I wouldn't be surprised because I can tell that Tina finds it very interesting. So it kind of makes sense.
And she is the boss, so.
Tina is the studio boss.
It's the same here. Just because my name's on the studio means nothing. Colleen's even got it on her Facebook page saying boss at John A. Butler Photography. So it must be true because it's on Facebook. So
Must be.
El Jefe. So let's go to Hark's. We might be getting a little bit redundant here, but Hark, when I put a call out earlier asking if anybody had any questions in regards to the upcoming.
Yeah, because he was also asking about CRM too. I think your management program, like computer-wise, what you use next. 'Cause I know I use a thing here right now called Studio Cloud, which keeps track of all of my clients, all the invoicing, and now I've actually started incorporating my contracts and model releasing there where I can email it to them. They can just sign it right on their phone or something.
So I don't think we're that elaborate. Our system is pretty much like kind of old school, but it works.
It is.
So Hark asked for Tina, would love to hear more about client management workflow from lead to booking to shoot ordering and final delivering products to clients. Do you use any CRM system for your marketing to existing clients?
So, it's all me, right? There's only the two of us. We don't have any staff anymore. We used to. So, there was a lot more checks and balances when we had staff, but when it's just me, I doesn't need to be quite as elaborate. I still make files for clients when we book them because we take those with us to the session with everybody's names on them and all their contact information. And, I mark on there if we quoted something, like for example, on a commercial job. I realized that could all be done on some sort of software, but right now this still works for us. And Rob likes to have those envelopes handy with the names on them when he's shooting. He usually sticks it in his back pocket and then pulls it out. Or when we're doing the ferries, he writes there. We use that to photograph because we're doing a bunch in one day. We photograph it as the ID.
Yep.
And then on the flip side, Rob writes in marker the kids' names so he can call them by name and see their names really easily, right? So.
Yep. I stole that from you guys actually because I did that for my Christmas one. Yeah, I took it and that's like a little piece of paper instead of an envelope, and I actually had the same stuff on the front. And I saw yours and I took a picture of it with my phone.
Okay.
And then so when I go to shoot the Christmas that family, I would put it on a chair there and I would just take a quick picture of it so that it lined up with everything, so Colleen knew who they were.
So there's.
Yeah.
Stole it from you guys.
There's
especially if you're doing a bunch in one day and you might not be downloading after every session, right? And so it makes it a lot easier to keep track of. And
so Tina has this made up for me. Everybody has one of these. Address, phone number, email, and details, and we always go put the child's name if there's more than one child. We put them in order of age. So Lexi, Brooke, and Braden, 2, 8, and 10 years of age. And then on the back, I have this because I'm always forgetting names. I put it over and I'm looking. I'm like, Braden.
Oh, that's a good idea. I never thought of that. Yeah.
Because I'm always forgetting their names. I wish I could remember.
But it's great because I was able to I had one family that was going to show up. They ended up having to cancel. I know the people personally, so it was a thing. But the one kid, he was on. They said he was on the spectrum a little bit, so he's very good at listening. But you might have to just look him in the eye and tell him because he was a little bit on that spectrum of autism. But it's nice to know that and have that form there to tell me, remind me when they show up and like, oh yeah, this is that family.
Anything like that goes on the form, right?
It's smart. I think you guys hit it out of the park with that one because I stole it from you because of that.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder if this is going to become archaic and redundant at some point. But it's
the same with your pamphlets too, your booklets that you do.
The price list?
Yeah, the price list. I think those are great.
Yeah, and it's got all the information in there as well, right?
I absolutely love those. I'm going to grab one and show you guys. But
yeah, and I'll grab mine too while Tina's talking about it.
So I'll just go on for a bit while you're getting that. So that file comes to the table too when it's time to take the client's order. And then I have an order sheet, and I've got names in front of me, and if there's any notes on there too about what exactly they wanted, because sometimes they know ahead of time. And yeah, there's the order form.
That's inside each envelope, right? That sort of gets archived.
Yeah,
oh, I'm getting too old to get up and down like this.
Oh, listen to him. Listen to him. As if.
All right, what's yours which? There we go.
So John, Tina was just saying that we put all the order forms in each envelope. So
yeah, which is smart. I was going to do that. I just didn't get time to do it on there, but I'm starting to use it now actually for just normal family portraits and anything that I do in my studio sometimes, like headshots.
Everything goes on here. We've been doing this since day one. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Did the same thing. I basically just stole your template, did my own, just on a regular piece of paper though.
Okay.
And I can still stick it in an envelope, but I just have a pile of these, and then when people phone me, I can just write it on there, and I have it ready to go.
What I
so
like
you could
about
just
this,
write their order right on the back of that, right?
Definitely, it could.
Yeah.
What I like about this is, we get to store everything in there, and we archive this and we file them away.
That's awesome.
We save them for 5 years, although we have them more older than that. But we tell.
And my price list, instead of a booklet like you guys, because I didn't have time to make up a big booklet, I just did like an actual trifold type of thing.
That works.
And it's got the same thing, and it works. And it's got all the products and all the price lists and everything in there. And we changed our things. Like you had your different packages. We had the cookie package, the elves package, reindeer package, and the Santa package. So
your Christmas specials, nice.
Yeah, I stole it off of everything that you guys did for fairy portraits. I'm like, hey, like Rob always said, learn off of successful people and you can be successful. So your fairy portraits are successful. Why not learn from it?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, okay. So I'll just continue to finish the process because they talked about filling the envelope comes to the table with me or my computer if I'm doing a Zoom proofing, and I fill out the order form. And what I do then is I go and set up the orders for Rob. So in Dropbox, we keep an orders to do folder going in each month of Dropbox, and I make a folder for each order in there. So we've got, let's say, July and all the session folders and a new folder for orders to do. Inside the orders to do is a folder for each client's order, and I drop all the images in there. And if they're a wall portrait, then I'll indicate to him the size so he knows when he's working on a wall portrait, right, not to size it down. And if it doesn't say it's a wall portrait, he knows it's 8 by 10 or smaller. Rob works up the images, and then when he's done, I go back to the computer with my files and the orders, and I open up each order one at a time, and I scan every image and make little tweaks, just because from delivering the orders, I know little things that people may complain about, right? Because I'm the one dealing with the clients all the time. So there's certain things I look for that, maybe Rob won't catch because he's not sitting there with the clients all the time. And, or sometimes I'll go do a little bit of extra retouching and then I'll...
So you're, just to sort of hold on that thought for a second, when you said scan, you mean visually scan. It sounded like you're
I'll open up the whole client's order and I'll look at every image.
This is important because second set of eyes.
Yeah.
Especially
when you're doing a bunch of fairies at once, right?
I get a little bit twisted and sometimes distracted, and I miss the most obvious things. Sometimes Tina misses it too, and the order goes out, and we're like, and then the client calls us and sends us an email and says the dog's got a boner, which happened. Family portrait, nobody saw it. The family dog had a boner. We're like, how the hell did we not see that?
Yeah. Here it is, 30 by 40 canvas on the thing with a big boner.
It's happened twice, and I always check the dogs now.
So what would you do in that case, though?
Well, we'd redo it.
Redo it.
We'd redo it.
We just bite it and redo it. But
retouch it out and redo it.
I thought it was funny as hell.
So, yeah.
Well, you sticking a person's foot in front of it, or like how do you retouch something like that?
No, you just use the healing brush.
Okay. Just take it right out. Okay.
Just take it out. Yeah.
Put some fur in there or something.
There's a tool called Boner Be Gone. It's by Topaz.
And
oh gosh.
Yeah. Also, along that same lines is because I'm sitting there doing the orders with the clients. I think I see the things they're commenting on in the samples. So, for example, if I'm looking at an image of a fairy girl and she's holding the ball, and a lot of people really comment, "Oh, that's so cool." And if I think it's not glowing enough, I'll go pump it up a bit more, because I don't want them to come back to me and say, "Oh, but the ball's not glowing like it was in that one I saw. It's more subdued," right? Or just little things like that. So anyways, and then I do the cropping and put the signature on, and so once I do all that, then I go back and I have a different folder for it's called GTA, right? My orders that are going to the lab, because we use GTA. And I have in that folder will be the first letters of their last name, the image number, and what I'm ordering of it, all in the file name in there. And so then once their order's done, I'll go back in there and I'll look at their order, look at what I have in there, and I'll count. Okay, there's 5 8x10s in their order. Do I have 5 8x10s starting with their last initials? There's 10 5x7s. Count them. And sometimes there's stuff I've missed. Like I've labeled it wrong. Instead of 3 5x7s, I'll have put 2. Or sometimes when I save it, I saved it into the wrong folder, so it's not until I go to the lab. So I go back and check it like that to say, hey, it's good, it's right. And then on to the next one. And then they go to the lab. Well, and especially getting close to Christmas time and stuff, sometimes if you make a mistake, there's no time to fix it, right?
That's true. And there's been times where Colleen's got things ready for me and I'm supposed to double check it, and I double check it and I send it in and find out there was a mistake, and it's like, but I told you to check it.
Then you have a big fight and you get divorced.
Yeah.
I hate it when that happens.
So anyways, when the orders come back in, so let's say there's a big box of orders. This would apply for myself when my orders are coming to Sudbury. I open up the box and it's pretty easy to sort them, because all I have to do is flip them over and the last letters of their last names are there, right? Printed with the image number.
Right on
so,
the print.
Yeah. So I can sort them with the files and the orders, and then I double check them, make sure I've got the right images in there, box them, and I've got the file in front of me, and I usually stack them up with the files and orders, if there's bills, and then I email people. Usually I email them before I call them. If they don't respond to my email in a day or two, then I'll follow up with a phone call. I find most people, it's easier to get a hold of them by email anyway. So
yeah.
And then we're pickups by appointment. So
yeah.
I don't know if what you do is different, John, as far as that all goes.
No, it's about the same. Just call them when they're here and they come pick them up.
Yeah.
Then she puts them in this box. These are done. They go in the box before they get permanently archived. And I go from here and I enter them into our greeting card. We used to use send out cards, but we switched over to bannerseason.com, and we have a database in there, so we can mail anybody a greeting card or a mini newsletter or whatever we want if we wanted to physically do that.
Yeah.
But in that program, there's a XLM file. Is it called Excel file? Database file?
CVS or something like that?
CVS? And we could
CSV.
download it too.
CSV.
So you can download that, and it's always backed up. So having the access to past clients is pretty important. Now, Tina, do you put everything, like, obviously you're pretty knowledgeable and skilled with Simply Accounting, which is our accounting software. So all our names of all our clients, are they also recorded in Simply Accounting?
Yeah, but it's just names in there.
Okay, so we
in
have
the
this
accounting software. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's only for the purpose of tracking sales to put out proper forms at the end of the year. And
that's what I like Studio Cloud for. It's made for photographers.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned something too. I just did a video call last week, I think, with Abbas from Albumapoka and his wife, Mahim.
Yep.
And they're working with someone on this Run Sensible software.
Yeah. Yeah, he sent it to me too.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. It's quite interesting. It's got some really cool features in it. For example, you know, you can change quotes into jobs, and but it's got you can call a client through the software.
Really?
And it'll show the phone number you want it to show, and it'll record the discussion
No kidding.
in their file.
Wow.
So if you need to go back, you know, you didn't make notes or something, which
Yeah.
occasionally happens, right? I'm like, oh, what did I say regarding something? You could actually go back and listen to the telephone conversation. So I thought that
That's
was
pretty cool.
kind of an interesting feature.
Yeah.
And you do all your
Interesting.
emails through there, and it logs it all in the client, so you can go back and look at any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A
I
lot
mean,
of
we're
stuff
not-
I could do with Studio Cloud, but not that. I don't think that phone call one. That's actually a good function there. I like that.
yeah, it's quite interesting. So
So
as long as
Run
you call them through the program.
Run Sensible is a new software. It's still in development, and
Yes.
they've asked us to be beta testers, John to
Yep.
be a beta tester, and a few
Yep.
more across Canada. I think Nancy was asked to. I'm not sure where she's at with that.
I
but,
think Aaron was maybe asked too.
Yeah, she's the American. We had her on here 2-3 weeks ago. That was a very interesting conversation.
Definitely.
And but yeah, so
I'm still looking it over, but I haven't had a chance to actually sit with everything that's gone on with me in the last week. I haven't had a chance to sit and do much. So
yeah.
I told Abbas yesterday, actually, I'm going to sit down more and do it. I just got to play with it.
I don't think it matters what program you use as long as it works for you. Tina, do you have
Yep.
any commentary on that from a studio management point? So if somebody came to you and said, I want to track sales, and what program should I use? I mean, would you recommend one in particular, or what John's currently using, or?
I'm not familiar with the one John is using. You know, I think the bigger the staff you have, I think that's going to make a difference, and you might need some sort of program to do that. But
well, the thing I like about Studio Cloud right now is you can actually assign different projects to different people in your, if you have more than one, like not just YouTube, but say you had 3 photographers or some editors, you can assign different tasks to them, and then they can go in and update it and stuff. I don't use that right now because it's just Colleen and I, so I probably don't use 90% of what you can use on those programs. I don't think anybody ever does.
Well, this is what I don't like about these programs. They don't appeal to me personally. Because of our system probably largely works and we're so used to it. And I don't see any big benefits to jumping off. However, I'm always open to, and I'm going to leave a lot of that in Tina's hands if she sees a program like we're checking out Run Sensible, and if it's like, this is, I'm going to let her be the sort of the decision maker in that department.
I think for me, it's more on the tax side, like the actual invoicing, things like that. That's what I use them for. But when it comes to controlling what's going on with the clients and their photography use, so I have a shelve unit here that I just have sectioned off. This is for proofing workflow, and then it goes from there, it goes to view and ordering, and that knows I have to call a customer and tell them their stuff's ready. And then from there it goes down to the print workflow after we've done the viewing session. And then it goes to sent to the lab. So anytime anybody calls me and says, yeah, I'm just wondering about my stuff, I can go look on the shelf and say, oh yeah, it's at the lab, or yeah, we're just waiting to touch your stuff up, or whatever. I've got it all organized that way. So
Tina, I'm going to guess that you're going to highly recommend to anybody that they keep good records regardless, and just keep things organized.
That's really the main thing, right? You don't want to be the one hearing from the client that their order is overdue. You should know that before them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just organization and good record keeping is really it, and good communication.
I've always tried to
Pretty
run it as
simple.
under promise and over deliver.
That's my motto too. That's my motto too. I always like to, when I tell people how long things are going to take, that there's a margin of error in there, so they love me because it's early, not hate me because it's late.
Just blame Rob. That's what we all do.
Or the lab. So Nancy says, in response to our previous commentary and observations on her clause and her pop-up weddings, the spirit of agreeable and pleasant communication, what was it called again? A happy clause.
Yeah.
It makes people laugh. I kind of like this now, okay, because if you bring it up during the meeting before they sign, they're aware of it. All right, you're preemptively managing their expectations to a degree, and there's a clause in there that is kind of open-ended. I mean, if you ever had to go to court, it might cover your butt. It makes a couple laugh, and it's a good jumping-off sentence if things go south. In the spirit of mutual cooperation, let's talk about this. So everybody would understand that. Everybody would understand if you had that conversation, and I could see myself having that conversation with people when we're talking with them, just so we know and we're clear. And if things go south, we're going to move ahead. We're going to move ahead in mutual cooperation. I like that. It's starting to make more sense to me. Thank you, Nancy. What do you think, Tina? Am I kind of reiterating that?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's cute. It's a cute idea.
It's cute.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have described it as cute, but okay. It is cute.
That's not a technical management term, but
No. Now we're going to cover cute clauses. Inspired by Nancy Tilburg, the happy clause. It's better than going into strict legalese. So interesting. So.
Yeah. I just think when it comes to Rob and I, we're just lucky that we have our wives that basically run the studio, so we can just do what we do and create.
Yeah, it's. I've always felt that way. The traditional mom and pop, business. Let's broaden it up to any business that's mom and pop. I think if you both have your skill sets and strength, and like Tina and I, our first year we got married, I brought her to a. I think we just had a baby. We went to, remember the fall safari for the northern branch of the Professional Photographers of Canada? Remember that? And there was a speaker there from Saskatchewan. And he had us do a personality thing. He said, this is good to know yourself and know your clients. You remember that, Tina? Mm-hmm. We did the personality profile. And I was way up in one corner and Tina was in the opposite, diametrically opposed corner. And we're like, oh, we're opposites. Which is, I think, a good thing when it comes to running a business with a business partner, especially one who is a spouse. I personally cannot see a better situation. I don't know why. Maybe it's my experiences that tell me that. It's just a really good thing.
Yeah.
And you got to get along. You're going to have days where I remember local photographers, he's now deceased, but she's around. She's almost, about 80 years old now. And she used to say, her name was Gloria, his name was Conrad, and she'd say, Conrad, I love you. Today, I don't like you, though. So you have your moments, and that's fine. And you work them out.
But it's your strengths that make the business run. Like, we're a little bit different than you guys in some ways. Like, Rob and I are both photographers. It differs in some ways. Like, I do more the creative stuff, like the designing of the albums, things like that, whereas I think Tina does the album designs for you, if I'm not mistaken. Also, Colleen does more of the accounting. She does a lot of my Photoshop for me, so I can just do the shooting and dealing with the clients, because she hates dealing with the clients themselves per hand to hand. So I deal with the one-to-one with the clients on the phones, emailing, things like that, whereas I know Tina does more of that stuff too. So
Yeah.
but we have our strengths and we know what they are, and by her being able to do my editing, that gives me time to deal with the clients and do the other stuff. And
I think it's important to know what you're good at, what you want to do, and you have to work these roles out. And if you don't have that in your life, if you're not a mom and pop situation, Tina, what would you tell somebody who is working solo and, you know, you obviously need to get all these things done. You're obviously going to have to do them all yourself at first. You have to wear the different hats all day long. You got to be hyper aware of that. And you have to, I think, schedule time and sit down and be very focused and very disciplined. And then eventually start delegating. Would you, like, you know, you hire a bookkeeper? Or you
I would definitely. I think if you're someone just starting out and you're just an artsy person, I would get the bookkeeping off your lap, because that's not your thing, right? And I mean, especially, you know, if it's not too, you know, if you're just starting out and you're not that busy, it's not going to be very expensive. It's not going to be a lot of transactions. So I would get that gone to somebody else and just try and concentrate on having a good rapport and communication with the clients as a good starting point.
definitely. I always tell a lot of people that want to get into photography, what should they do? And they're all talking about schooling. What school should they? I always say, go take a business course.
Yeah.
You can learn photography anywhere. You can learn how to use your camera and stuff like that, but you got to know how to run a business or you're not going to survive. And that's the problem. That's what's happening with the shoot and burners. They don't know how to price properly. They don't know how to run a business, and they find that by 6 months down the line, they're doing a second, third job just so they can do their photography still.
And you forgot something, John.
What's that?
Basic rule that every wife needs to implement.
Uh-oh.
Always let your husband buy lenses.
Oh, yeah.
God,
Yeah.
how could you be so
I know.
absent-minded?
What? Colleen's not even in the building today. I could have actually said something like that.
So, okay, we're winding down to the very end here. Closing comments. I'm trying to think of something that's really smart and witty to ask my business partner / wife, mother of my child, but nothing comes to mind.
One quick thing I had to ask actually is when you're doing like your booklets and you're doing your stuff for your fair report, do you have a clause in any of your contract, anything when they hire you that by signing up to do this, you give us permission to use your images in our promotional material? Because I know in my area here, I have to be very careful because I'm at a main military base area here, and there are also a lot of children that either maybe they can't be out in the public because of certain family situations that happen, or we have what's called CSOR here in the military, which is like the Canadian version of Navy SEALs, and they're very secretive and they can't have their pictures out in the open. Like, do you have a clause that covers that they're allowed to do that, or?
We do have a spot on our invoice for people to sign, which I have to admit that I'm not always really good about getting done. But if there's someone in particular, Rob really likes their pictures, you know, usually he'll tell me to ask them when they pick up.
Yeah.
If they can use it, but especially we always make sure like all the images on the advertisements or on the ferry booklet, those little girls on the front page and stuff. We got permission for that.
I know 9 times out of 10 they want that and they love it that you're using their images, but I know like in my area, because of CSOR, military, and certain situations, I've had to be careful with certain people that I put on my promotional material.
If I'm using anything for major ads and for wall portraits, I always ask them if it's okay.
Do you put it in writing? Or normally I don't, because if they say yes, I'm
okay with that. And if they came back and said, "Oh, you didn't give me the," I'd say, "Okay, I'll just take it down." Sorry, it's never happened. But I just want to. You mentioned these booklets. We have 2 booklets. We have this 8-page booklet for. This is our newest one for weddings.
Okay.
So our clients, we don't have any wedding prices in here. We just have content, and I talk about all the different aspects. And there's a whole page dedicated to pop-up weddings. There's a picture of Tina with her microphone. And I'm going to ask you a question about, before we close off, I want to ask Tina about some of her biggest challenges being a wedding officiant. And but this is from
Vistaprint.
Vistaprint. Thank you. They're a little pricier than normal like pieces, but they're worth every penny. And we have the exact same thing, John. You saw them when we came to your studio last summer.
No, they're gorgeous
For fairy portraits, and we have it.
Yeah.
You know, everything I want to convey and or talk about and or show off and explain goes in here. Plus, we have a PDF online.
Yeah.
So we used to have the bigger one for our weddings. So it's loaded with information.
Yeah.
Loaded. And when people come in, whether they're booking a wedding or a fairy portrait, I mean, it just impresses the hell out of them, and it gives me a guide to use as when I'm going through all the information, because I'm explaining everything, and you know, good selling is really serving. Yep. So I use these as guides, and it also just really increases the value and the perceived value of your brand when you hand them one of these things. So we have one for weddings, and we have one for fairies, and we've been going through a lot through the fairies. So they cost a lot of money, but every time I got to order,
one here.
every time
Do you make like separate price lists for like the wedding one there that you can slide into it, like just one sheet type of thing, and you can slide?
No, we don't. I'm just going to hand write it out.
Okay.
It's more customized, but for fairies, the prices are in there, and we're probably going to increase our prices on our fairy reprints a little bit.
Yeah, I messed up on Mars. We have to reprint ours. We did the 3 5x7 art plaque and the 5 5x7 art print, the plaque mounted and mounted ones, and we accidentally screwed up on our pricing there. We didn't realize until we got them back. It's like, oh, so we didn't make much money off of those if anybody ordered them. So
did you find it, Tina?
No, I was sure I had a copy here, but I don't see it.
Well, people get the idea anyway. So anyways, Tina and I, just let's finish off with one final aspect to all this. It's not to do so much with managing, but it is to do sort of indirectly with managing and working with your spouse. We decided to do pop-up weddings a few years ago, like we talked about, and our biggest struggle over that was determining who was going to be the wedding officiant. I wanted to be the wedding officiant because I'm way more outgoing than she is. And she insisted on being the wedding officiant. We kind of argued about that back and forth for a little bit. And my thinking was, it's easy to do candids during the ceremony, so I don't need to do the photography. But the main reason was I can really see myself doing that. So now Tina insisted on it. I'm like, yeah, okay. And it actually worked out really well because she's actually quite good at it. And she's very organized as far as all the other aspects of running a wedding is concerned, because there's some legal issues, and you got to make sure everything is done according to the letter of the law, and then the actual officiating itself. So you're taking on new roles as a sort of a leader. I almost said a religious leader, but you're not, because traditionally it's always been the priest who married people. Yeah. But nowadays it's the wedding officiant. But they look up to you. You're esteemed, so to speak. So when Tina
What's the glass pass? I never heard of that, John.
I never heard it. I love it.
I don't know.
It's a thing. It's actually a thing, and it's embedded in the stones of truth. So Tina, tell us about, I want to know about, share the story quickly about how you sort of prepared to become a wedding officiant, because you still get a little bit nervous. I mean, you were much more nervous back then. You're much more in control now. And when you're in front of everybody and you're officiating the ceremony, tell them about the Toastmasters idea that I suggested and that you agreed on. And
so I went and took the wedding officiant course and got my license, and I'm usually the background person. I don't really like being out in front of everybody, even though really the attention's on the couple, not the wedding officiant, but it's up to me to make sure that it all goes well. And obviously I'm leading and talking quite a lot. So what I did is Ron belongs to Toastmasters. So I joined just to prepare for my first wedding. So I actually at Toastmasters did 2 mock weddings. I just pulled some people from Toastmasters, and the first one was just a straight mock-up just to get me up there in front of people. And I mean, it's a very friendly situation anyways. And then the second time I did it, I actually had the wedding prepared for my first wedding. I actually did that wedding with their names and everything.
All right.
And did it in Toastmasters. And even, I went to visit your sister Paula at her cottage with my friend the weekend before my first wedding, and I did it with them too out at the camp, right? Did the actual wedding.
Good.
And afterwards they're asking me, how was Mandy and Derek's wedding? Because they were playing Mandy and Derek, right?
How did I do?
So it was pretty nerve-wracking, that first one. It was like, what did I decide to do here? Because I'm not a get up and speak in front of people, but
no regrets.
I managed to keep it together and just tell myself, this is not about me, this is about them, and I got to make sure this is a good experience for them. And
You've done a lot. You've done a lot
haven't
since
looked
then.
back. I think I've done 30 weddings, so it's not a lot as an officiant goes, but I mean, last year was quite a blast for things, and this year so far too. So
30's not bad considering it's only been 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that to say is a good story that I think exemplifies good preparation and preemptively managing anything that could be an issue. And for you, it was, a new experience for you because, like you mentioned, you're not the go in front of the crowd kind of person, and we got through it okay, and you did a bang up job. So,
and when you do that, is it just the two of us? Like you offer a price for the photography and the officiant, or do you include the venue, any videographer, like any other vendors into your price package?
Depends what they want.
Some of them, it's the package, just where it's 2 hours of photography and the officiant. That's one package, right? Or when that's like we just go to whatever their venue is that they already have, in and out. Then there's the package where we do the pop-up wedding days, where, usually we would do 3 days in a year where we do that. And we were hoping to extend it to more, but we'll need for COVID to be over for that. And with those, we provide everything.
Okay.
The snacks, the venue, the decor.
They just show up.
Yep.
And they love it. And we were ready to go out of town. We had an antique church out by Barrie, close to Toronto. We were ready to go down there and do a pop-up wedding event. Boom, it's all gone. So can't do any of that. We'll maybe revisit it later. Not sure. So anyways, Tina, thank you very much for doing this. It's coming up to an hour and a half. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
My pleasure.
I'm sure lots of people learned a lot.
Hope so. Hope it was helpful.
I learned what a glass pass is, and I also learned what the happy clause is. This is
I think that's what he was calling glass pass, is another word for the happy clause.
Yeah. And it works out. So I appreciate you being here. So shall we call it a wrap until next week? Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.
Bye.
All right,
everyone.
see yas.